Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining me on this Monday, March 21st, right here in the Locher Room. I'm Alan Locher. Ken Schreiner made his debut as Scotty Baldwin on ABC's General Hospital in August of 1977. Ken is here today to take a look back on the role he has played on and off screen for 45 years. Ken joined the cast of the General Hospital spinoff Port Charles in 1997, bringing the character of Scotty along with him. In addition to Scotty, Ken has played Jeb Hampton on Texas, Mike Gallagher on Rituals, Dr. Brian Carrey on The Bold and the Beautiful, Harrison Bartlett on The Young and the Restless, and Keith Morrissey on As the World Turns. It is my distinct pleasure to welcome Ken Schreiner to the Locher Room. Hello there,
Alan.
Ken.
Yeah, wait a minute.
5 years.
Technical difficulties on this end.
Oh, what's happening?
I don't know. I'm not getting you. I'm not getting a picture. My girlfriend's daughter hooked it up, and now she's got to figure out what went wrong here. This is, this technology.
Technology. Maybe do you not see the browser? Look for Chrome. On the bottom, the little icon, it's green, orange, and yellow, something like that.
Oh, is that, you see me now?
I do. You see me?
Okay, we're back in business.
We're back in business. 45 years, my friend. What is that? When you think back, could you have ever imagined playing the same role for 45 years?
No, because I kept leaving it all the time. So, yeah, and people just started saying he's like just a bad penny. He just keeps turning back up. So I didn't, I signed when I first started a 3-year contract. And by that time I had already jumped ship and gone to New York to do a soap called Texas. So, I don't know what I was thinking. I mean, in hindsight, I should have just stayed as Scotty Baldwin and never gone anywhere.
Interesting. Well, take me back to, what you remember of August of, or a little earlier than August of 77, the audition for Scott Baldwin.
Well, I didn't really audition. There was a guy by Tom Donovan was the producer of the show. And I had gotten, as I'd been a contract player at Universal Studios, and I was getting some momentum as an actor, and, going into a soap opera, they weren't really doing that well then. They were kind of almost nearing, their goodbye, because they were all sort of floundering a little bit. There was so anyway, I just went and talked to Tom Donovan about coming on the show. And he said, well, we got a couple episodes. We want to introduce your if you're interested, as the Lee Baldwin's son, who Gail Baldwin goes to find in Greenwich Village. He's kind of been a runaway. And so I did the 2 shows, and then they decided, it took 2 weeks to decide. And then they said, yeah, we want to bring the character back for good. So it was kind of, my audition was a on-camera 2-show audition. And the scenes were all with Susan Brown, who, couldn't have been a better person to come in with. So, yeah, but we were live on tape. So it started at 2:00. All the actors were in their sets. And then the camera at 2:00, we just went live, and they went from set to set to set to set to set for 45 minutes. The show was only 45 minutes then. Wow. And so it was like a real feeling of live television, the whole thing with everything happening at once. It was very exciting. Very exciting.
I bet. And you were thrown in pretty early on into a triangle with Jeannie and Tony, weren't you?
No, the triangle that scored the gold was the Bobby Scotty triangle. Bobby, Scotty, Laura. When Jackie Zeman came on, and I'll never forget, I had tested with these 5 girls to play Bobby. And in the scene, I was to pour them a glass of wine, each girl that was auditioning, and for some reason, it was a real bottle of wine. So by the fifth girl, yeah, I was a little loopy, and I thought, wow, So the next day, this limousine pulls up, and I go, who the hell's in the limousine? And out of the car gets Jackie Zeman in a fur coat. And I said, who's that? And then they said, well, that's the new Bobby Spencer. I said, oh. So I guess those 5 girls I auditioned with, they didn't get it. None of them got it. And so they got Jackie right off of One Life to Live. But she showed up like a movie star in a limousine and a fur coat. And I was taken back, and I thought, wow, this is going to be fun. So once that got going, this triangle with her and I and Jeannie is when GH started to get some action, because all of a sudden there were young people and these kids that were coming home from school to watch their mother's soap. All of a sudden there's young Jeannie with problems, and there's, her boyfriend who's, seems okay. And then there's a Spitfire redhead that's causing trouble. So it wasn't until maybe a year and a half before Bobby called her brother Luke, and the great Tony Geary came on. But we were well, on our way before we needed him.
Before you needed him. What was it like ping-ponging between Jeannie and Jackie?
What was it like?
Yeah, just working opposite both powerhouses.
Well, it was, wild, because they both were so strong. And, Jeannie had to be in school for the few hours in the morning. So when we would shoot her stuff, she had to be at first. So she had like 10 scenes. So you kind of didn't get time to rehearse much because she was in school. But she was always, as it turns out, she just did an interview with somebody about her 45th, and she said that she knew her lines, my lines, and everybody's lines at the same time, because I was always like, how does she learn all this? Because she could just do it. She went one scene after another.
I mean, some people just have it, they can take in the whole thing.
Yeah, there was a point when Gloria Monty took the show over, and she was going to kill off a lot of characters. And fortunately for Jeannie and I, they decided to put us in a storm shed, and a hurricane blew through Port Charles and took out half the cast. And then that made way for all of the Leslie Charlson and Jane Elliott and all these other, and even Jackie to come on. But so in that particular scene in the storage shed we were in during this hurricane, I had a line that was like, now remember your Tennyson, Laura. And then there was about 4 lines of the Tennyson poem, and I couldn't remember it. But since she knew my lines and her lines, she immediately came up. You mean, I said, yeah, that's the verse you're talking about. So she kind of saved me, and because we were kind of live those days. So it was good that she knew everybody's lines, because I certainly forgot mine.
Yeah, I've heard that before. People who have helped other people. Some of the fans are writing, very true. Scotty, Laura, and Bobby is what got me watching. It was Scotty, Laura, and Bobby triangle and the David Hamilton story that saved GH from cancellation. Yeah, everyone. And I remember that first hurricane in the storage shed. Gloria Monty shook things up from the start.
Yeah, but there's this is not being braggadocious, because it wasn't just me, but General Hospital went from number 14 to number 1 in 1 year. It jumped 18 Nielsen points, which is unheard of. And it was only because of Jeannie and Jackie. And I think that these kids found that my mother's soap isn't so bad. and they started
Totally.
watching. Then these kids went to college, and everybody in college was, "Are you watching General Hospital? It's really good." And then all of a sudden, the show was number one with a bullet, and it kept going to the heyday.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
When you first arrived, was there anyone who, took you under their wing or helped you out, in this new daytime world?
Well, Susan Brown and Peter Hansen, they were just vibrant people, and they would take off before lunch to go play tennis. And I was like, shouldn't we run lines? Are you guys going to play tennis? But they were so cool about it and had done it and been on the show since it started, or at least Peter started the show in '63. So having them to work with, you're only going to get better when you work with people that are better.
Yeah, when you're surrounded.
So, we really enjoyed ourselves, and then we became, really great friends. And then I started, meeting Peter for breakfast in the morning before the show, and we would go to these lunches that we would break, and we had the time of our lives. And they were just fun people. We would go to the nightclubs and roller skate back in the disco boogie.
Yeah, totally.
Peter and Susan, they would go, and they were in their 50s then. They were just fun-loving people. So we had a really great cast of fun people.
I love that. RH Fanatic says, Kin, your hair is on point as always. Looking good, mister.
Oh, thank you.
So Scotty took off in a huge way when you first joined the show. Was there a pivotal moment for you when you realized the popularity of the character you were playing?
Yeah, we went, Jeannie Francis and I went down to Fort Lauderdale to do something. Her aunt lived down there, and I was down because I grew up in Fort Lauderdale. So we were there at the same time, and we went to a restaurant called Stan's on the water in Fort Lauderdale. And we were sitting there having dinner, and a waitress came over and said, so some people would like to say hello to you guys. Is that all right? And I, sure. And we looked up, and there was a line of people that went all the way down the stairs, outside, and around the block. And I looked at Jeannie and I said, I think we're onto something. So we kind of knew then that people were watching because we didn't know anything. You go to that studio every day, and they may say that the ratings are going up, but you're in Hollywood. Nobody in Hollywood is fussing over soap opera actors. So we didn't know anything until we actually got out in the world and said, wow, people are really watching this show. This is, quite a few people that want to just say hello. So, yeah.
It's, when you're behind the walls of the studio, it's hard to really, know what's going on outside. I mean, now you
don't. You don't know anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we'll come back to General Hospital, but I'd love to, where did you, your twin brother, Will, and sister Indy spend most of your childhood? Where'd you grow up?
Where did we spend most of our time?
Childhood.
We were born in Manhattan, lived outside of New York for about 7 years. And then as soon as I heard about Hollywood, I said, let's go there. And we moved and my father and mother were in show business. So I'm joking, but yeah, my father needed to come to LA, for work and stuff. So we moved here in third grade and stayed here till high school, and moved down to Fort Lauderdale, and assumed, like, if you've ever watched the show Flipper, we were like those kids that in Flipper, we took boats to school and water skied home from school and pretty much got, F's and everything because it was,
because you were on the water.
About getting out of school and going and water skiing home. It was pretty good. But when we were growing up in LA, we used to make Super 8 movies, and we were very involved in movies and show business. We did a little Super 8 of Batman and we did The Magnificent Seven, and we did Man from U.N.C.L.E. So we would make these little Super 8 movies and thought we were, movie makers.
Cool as shit.
Well, we just thought we were like, making little movies. We were making films. And at that time, I said to my father, I said, I really want to be a professional actor. And so in third grade, I begged him to let me go to a professional acting class in Hollywood. And he did. And I got a part to play Jesus as a boy in some movie. And my father said, why don't you try playing the part of a good student for a while instead of... so my early career was stifled because he any parent that's in show business, I don't think they particularly want their kids in show business because they know how tough it is. Mm-hmm. But I was at it at a young age. And then after Florida and forgot about it and was too busy water skiing and goofing off and swimming with the manatees down there. When my brother and we deadheaded it back here at 20. I turned 21 on Dino's restaurant on Sunset Strip, the famous where they shot 77 Sunset Strip. So I was in LA in 75 when it was all happening. And my brother and I rented a little house in Laurel Canyon, which was, the coolest spot that you could ever live in. Laurel Canyon is where it all happened. The music, everybody wanted to be in Laurel Canyon. So
what was it like growing up with a twin brother? Did you two play a lot of pranks on people?
Well, I'm 8 minutes older than my brother, and I claim it's the happiest 8 minutes of my life. But because we were very much into goofing around, we would do like stunt fights and just start phony fights in front of people, but we had them all choreographed so they looked like real fights. And so, when you have a fraternal twin brother, there's nothing but trouble. All we did was wrestle and cause trouble and and he chose a career in comedy, and he went on to be very successful in comedy and appeared on Johnny Carson 7 or 8 times, had his own show, and then he just decided that LA was not for him anymore, and he's been living in Fort Lauderdale where he's about to become Commodore of his yacht club down there, the LYC Yacht Club, the Commodore. It's a very important business. So he's very busy down there, and he just loves, Florida.
Well, the water.
Well, Fort Lauderdale. He loves.
Yeah, the water drew him back.
Yes, the water skiing.
Is it true you were a door-to-door salesman before you started acting?
Fuller Brush Man.
Oh.
Yeah. We had to wear if you had long hair, and we all had long hair in Texas, and they made us wear these wigs to school because you weren't allowed to be a long hair. So they didn't care as long as you had these horrible, $5 wigs on. And so I had to wear a wig. And when I went door to door as a Fuller Brush Man, I was on my motorcycle. I had a motorcycle, and it was always that wig was always blowing off and stuff. And the door to door, I thought, you know what? I could just sit here and stop cars at the stop sign instead of doing all this door to door. And I stopped the car, and the car said, "No, thanks, get out of my way." And they ran over my whole sample kit, and all the foams stuff blew up. And, I pulled my wig off because I was just dejected by the whole thing. And at that time, the boss drove by and saw, "You're fired." Well, so that was the end of my Fuller Brush career.
That was the end of your career. Okay. Well,
But I enjoyed being a Fuller Brush man. Just get that one foot in the door, and that's how it works.
Well, I was sorry to read. I didn't know this about you. I'm sorry you lost your parents at such a young age. But your dad was a humorist, actor, radio and television host. What do you remember most about his career?
Well, he had a show called Two for the Money in the 50s in New York. And when my brother and I were born, we were trotted out on his show because he actually got Two for the Money. He got twins, right? So that was the big joke. So I started my career on TV in 1953.
Crazy.
Yes.
Did your dad have an influence? I mean, you said it earlier. I guess he did have an influence on you becoming an actor. Watching.
No, well, he, as a comedian, we were all subject to jokes, jokes at our expense. I mean, some kids. I mean, my father, after he told me try playing the part of a good student, he then told me the only way I was getting into college was in a jar. And I said, well, wow, that's kind of tough. But, I think he was right, because I never went to college, and I doubt so I could end up in a jar as a specimen at some college.
College.
So he was right. But he made fun of us all of us because, you had to keep up in a humorous house. My sister is very funny. My brother, of course, had a gift of comedy, and I liked it all.
Were you the brunt if the three of them were such?
Yeah, I was. I got a lot of, and my mother and father loved animals, and we grew up with a gibbon ape, a little gibbon ape that wore clothes, real clothes, and it became like another brother. And my mother used to love to dress us all in matching sailor suits. And it was like, I said, it's bad enough that my brother, we're in the same sailor suit. Now the monkey's in the sailor suit too. I mean, it wasn't. The monkey had the sailor suit, and they had a little cowboy suit too. So, it was just, but back in those days, parents loved to dress kids in costumes.
They certainly did. You need to find that picture and post that to social media.
I have it. It's right over my corner. It's right. I have the picture of me and all of us in a sailor suit. It's right around here somewhere. Yeah. Yes.
If you don't mind, like I said, losing your parents, what helped you and your brother and your sister get through such a difficult time?
Well, we were very young, and things happened quick, and we were shifted to go live with my grandmother in Texas, and my sister went to college. She was already starting college, and we were finishing up high school in Texas. And, then next thing you know, what are you gonna do with yourselves? Oh, we got to get back to Hollywood. And, you just keep soldiering on to see, I believe, and I spoke with Maurice Bernard on his show, State of Mind. He's had me on a couple of times. But I told, he asked me that, and I said, if you are convinced that you're going to see them on the other side, it's just when,
right?
That otherwise you go, well, wait a minute. So it's like, when I see my father again, I'm sure he'll be like, so you became an actor after all. Yeah, I did, didn't I? So
he'll definitely be razzing you about pictures like this.
Yes, And yeah, there you go.
He'll definitely
Yes.
be razzing you about, that's a great way to look at it. That's a great
Well,
way to
but
look.
everything's on the other side, and the more people that head over there before you, there's more people to say hello to, hopefully. And I could be completely wrong, but I'm banking on, I'll see you again. See you
Yeah.
soon. Not
Y-
soon. Not soon.
No,
I didn't say
no, no.
soon. I'll see you when I see you.
I'll see you when I see you. Roll
Yeah.
out the red carpet when we arrive, but it's not for a long time.
Yes. Tell Cecil B. DeMille I'm coming.
Exactly. Before General Hospital came along, you mentioned this earlier, and I read this, that you were under contract for Universal Studios. How did that come about? And do you have a favorite role you did for Universal?
Well, when you're a contract player, they pay you a salary every week. It wasn't like where you came in for fencing and acting classes and all of that stuff. By that time, all of the kind of programs had sort of come to an end, and that the contract system was just to get young actors that they could, start to build in a direction of maybe, but then sometimes the producers that were doing these shows at Universal said, wait a minute, I don't want to get stuck with one of these contract guys. I want another guy. So it was a very weird thing, and I was there for a year. And I mean, like my first week that I was there, and they said, okay, you have a scene. You're going to play a blind soldier in a movie called MacArthur. And I said, oh, okay, that sounds like fun. And, this scene was with Gregory Peck. And I go, oh my God, Gregory Peck? And so I started right off with Gregory Peck. And then, then I was over doing, Baba Black Sheep with my other idol, Robert Conrad, who looked over and said, I thought I was too tall. And, he was a little, he had a short complex, but he'll admit that. And then I got to do an episode of a show called Kingston Confidential. And the star of that show was my boyhood idol, which I don't know why, but I started watching Perry Mason at 6 years old in New York City on Sunday nights. I was obsessed with Perry Mason. I still watch it to this day all the time. I just love these Perry Masons. But all of a sudden, I'm doing Kingston, and the star of the show was Raymond Burr. Wow. And I thought, oh, so the scene was I was some kid laying on the ground, and he comes up to quiz me about what happened. And so I was, ready, and Mr. Burr's coming to the set, and he shows up, and I look up, and I look up, and I look up, and I look up, and he was like the size of a refrigerator. He was huge. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and couldn't have been nicer. Couldn't have been nicer. He was, hey, get that kid a blanket. He should be laying on a blanket. Oh, no, it's okay, Mr. Burr. I'm fine here. But, I didn't even, it took me to compute that I just played a scene with Perry Mason, but now he's Kingston. But it was so all of those contract days were like that. You were called and you had no idea who was going to be in the scene or who you were even working with or what show it was. I mean, I had no idea that I'd be working with the great Gregory Peck for right out the bat. General MacArthur, sir, is that you? Yes, son, it is. I just heard that they lobbed some shells on the beach in Santa Barbara, California. Well, son, see, I remember all my lines, and that was my first acting job, really.
Wow.
No, my first acting job was 105 on Young and the Restless in 1974 or something. I don't know, somewhere around there. Yes.
Wow. I mean, just to have the opportunity to work with your idol is got a totally blow your mind. What prompted you to leave GH and go to Texas?
Money. They made me a deal. I couldn't my agent at the time, famous Hollywood agent, Dick Heckenkamp, he was very, he said, listen, they want you. They want you. I got them. I got them where I want. I can make a deal. And so he made this like incredible 1 year pay or play, which put me in a very different bracket for that year. Now, I had always wanted to be an actor in New York, a New York actor, because at that time, the De Niros, the Pacinos, it was all about New York actors. As far as Hollywood, it was, Troy Donahue and Tab Hunters, and it was just pretty boys. So to be taken seriously as an actor, you thought, well, I better do some acting in New York. So I said, sure. So I went to New York and I did Texas for a year, and I lived in the Upper West Side, and I worked with all of those great theater actors from that were doing shows at night and soaps during the day. And I said, well, here I am. I'm a New York actor now.
One of your fans, Matthew, says, I heard you were paid $1 million for jumping ship to Texas from GH. If that's true, what did you do with the $1 million? That's pretty good if you were. You don't have to answer that, my friend. But that is for daytime television. It sounds, you even said it before I joked with that question. They took care of you.
No, it just put me from a kid actor who's been on the show for 3 years, and then this deal. The reason Texas was going to go opposite General Hospital, which I didn't know at the time, that I was going to be in competition with my own self. And I think that they were trying to break up the momentum of the Scotty, Laura, Luke, Bobby, the whole thing. And my contract came up first. So they came after me. Now, they could have come, if Jeannie's was up, they would have grabbed her. They would have grabbed Tony. So I don't believe it was me. They just wanted to do something, and they were willing to pay, and then when I found out that I'm going opposite General Hospital, I thought, well, it was kind of a stupid thing, because now I'm in, no matter what I did on Texas, people just came up to me and said, when are you coming back to General Hospital? I said, well, I'm in Texas now. Don't you watch Texas? No, we don't like Texas. We watch General Hospital. I said,
What do you remember working with Paul Rausch over there?
I love Paul Rausch. I walked into his office the first day, and he shoved me across the room. I thought, you think you're a big star, don't you? I said, Paul, you hired me. He goes, I did. Okay. I'm going to put you on the phone with the writers right now. I want you to talk to them about your character. I said, oh, okay. So I sat down on his couch, and then I kind of made myself comfortable on his couch, and I kind of stretched out, and I was on the phone. And from that day on, Paul was great. And I love Paul Rausch, and all the other actors were always like, you got to go talk to Paul about this. I said, why me? Because he loves you. I said, but I got along really well with Paul Rausch, and I wanted to worked with him again right up until the end when he was over at the Young and Restless.
Oh, that's awesome.
That was, I think, his last time it was last show.
Yeah. That was his last gig. Yeah.
Paul I like Paul, and I got to know his daughter really well. He was a good guy, Paul Rausch.
I agree. He knew really how to do soaps well.
Yeah, he did. He did.
He really did. You returned to General Hospital to crash the monumental Luke and Laura wedding that drew, a ridiculous 30 million viewers. What do you recall about returning at that time, and the success of that?
Well, it was way before social media or any damn thing. And Gloria Monty at the time really wanted it to be a surprise. And she had stashed me in a trailer because there were so many extras and people, and it was such a big production. She just didn't want me floating around. She kind of wanted that whole factor of, me coming out and grabbing the bouquet and then doing that fight with Tony. So, I was in this trailer, and the back of the trailer door opened, and out came Tristan Rogers. And he had come on the show while I was in New York. And he goes, "Hello, mate, I'm Tristan Rogers." I said, "Oh, yeah. Hi, Tristan." Ken, he goes, "Yeah, Tony talks about you a lot. He speaks very highly of you." I said, "Oh, that's good." So, that's how I met Tristan Rogers for the first time. But I was trapped in the trailer until I came out to do the there it is, catch the bouquet.
That's wild. And you, Tristan and Tony, hung, first of all, you were working nonstop during that time period, and you three hung out quite a bit, didn't you?
Yeah. Yeah, we did.
Well, can you describe, just that time for the three of you and the success of all your characters?
Tony and I hung out. Tristan really didn't hang out with us as much. Tony and I would go to this nightclub, Flippers, and go roller skating at night. And Tony and I did a lot of appearances together and fun stuff. So, him and I were really, really good friends. And, he had such a incredible sense of humor, and he was so funny. And, he made me laugh so much. And he was, 7 or 8 years older than me. So he kind of taught, I just watched him because he was so good and so in charge of his character, because he had been around, for a while as an actor. So he really just brought this game right away when he came on as Luke. And I remember his first scene, he was disconnecting my spark plugs, and he chose to whistle in the scene. And I thought, wow, that's really cool. So, I really admired him, and he kind of changed how an actor can make a character his own with a little, with the way that he worked, the way he sort of improvised within the character, which was very, once you realize that it works. The other actor that used to do that was another great actor that I loved and hung out with quite a bit. His name was Gerald Gordon. He had come off The Doctors, and he was on General Hospital when I started. And he kind of was like the Gene Hackman of daytime. He just was all over the place, and he'd throw his script and say, "Come on, kid, we're going to the Brown Derby for lunch." And I said, "Okay, Jerry, I'm with you. Let's go." You threw your script over there. So there's a lot of cool cats when I was young, and Tony and Jerry Gordon were two of them that you could look up to.
That's awesome. I love that. Talk about humor and how much humor, how did humor become such a part of the character of Scotty Baldwin?
Well, because it runs in my family, and because Tony and I always try to go for the humor of a situation, to find humor. And at first it was, wisecracking and sharp lines and throwaway lines and sometimes ad libs. And so finding that kind of humor, I thought, well, this is only going to work because, you got to keep reinventing your character. Otherwise, you gotta, I mean, sometimes if you go too far over the comedy line, you go buffoony. So you don't want to get to the buffoon, but you want to stay sharp.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And what was your relationship like with Gloria Monty?
Oh, she really, she loved Jackie, me, Jeannie, Tony. We were like, she knew Jane, Leslie Charleston, all the people that she brought on. I was already, she inherited me and Jeannie, but she brought on all these really, great actors, David Lewis and Jane. So I guess she just knew what she wanted, and I guess she felt that I offered something, and we were good, and she gave us the ball to run, and we did, and it was fun, because that's what really put daytime, was the youth. Without the youth, who knows where, they really needed an infusion of youth back in the 70s. And I think that didn't Erica Kane, and she was kind of the beginning of a younger breed of youthful characters. And then you had Jeannie, who was playing 16, and every girl that was stuck watching General Hospital with her mother could identify with the Laura character. I mean, they just, she's got so much troubles, and she's done this. Oh my God, she just killed David Hamilton, and she's got the boyfriend that's in love with her. But who's this Luke guy? I mean, so there was she had these kids at the edge of their seat that were growing up watching General Hospital, and took it right to college. As I said earlier, that's how it got to college. That's how it spread to college.
And it spread. Yeah. It spread at that time. I mean, is it, over 45 years, I know it's been on and off, but what are some of your favorite storylines?
Well, anytime there was so much fun stuff. I had so many storylines and so much stuff, and then they gave me, kids, and then we had the stuff that I enjoyed the most was the hijinks. Like when I got hooked up with Robin Matz and Heather Weber, I mean, she was just a hoot to work with, and we were always up to some sort of hijinks. And then it became, then I got with Lynn Herring, and then Lucy and Scotty ran around, did hijinks. So that kind of stuff where you're up to no good, but it's fun. And I think hopefully the audience thinks it's fun to watch that kind of pace and humor, because both those actresses have a very specific rhythm that is very fast, and I talk very fast too, so that it became a very kind of screwball comedy, if you will. If you watch the old screwball comedies, you'll see what I'm talking about, because My Girl Friday and all of those things.
Yeah.
These actors, they talk right over each other, and it's very fast paced, and we really tried to do that. That was our goal, was to have fun and keep the audience amused with our shenanigans.
It's really is crazy, though, of the talent you have worked with, male and female, but a lot of your female partners, and I'll jump to As the World Turns in a minute too, but you just mentioned Robin Matz and Jackie Zeem and Ginny Francis, and I know Lynn Herring is a great actress and great friend. Talk about your friendship and working with her for all these years.
Well, I talk to her every day, and we became very fast friends very quickly back when she started in the 90s. Of course, she said that she used to watch me when she was in grade school, and I said, really? But she's another one that's very fast on her feet, smart as a whip, funny and sharp. And then we got to spin General Hospital, our characters, off to that show, Port Charles. So when I talk to Lynn, it's always, she's very verse on many subjects so she can talk for a while. I mean, we can be on the phone and go, Jesus, I just talked to you for 80 minutes, and what did we even talk about?
And don't realize it, right?
None. Yeah, no. So she's always fun. And I always, when we get to do stuff together and have scenes together, it's always a riot because, she would always say to me, she goes, this could be a good scene if you don't screw it up. So, well, that's encouraging.
Yeah.
What makes you think I'm going to screw it up?
Thanks for support. Speaking of Port Charles, this June, it's 25 years since Port Charles debuted. What was that experience like, bringing your character over there?
Well, I had been away from playing Scotty for maybe about a year. And then when it was pitched that your daughter, who Lucy gave birth to in a snowbank, and then I kind of went to Canada to do a series up there and this, that, and everything. So then they said, well, we're going to bring you and your daughter, Serena. Now she's going to be 8 and she's been kidnapped, and you've been a single father raising her, and Lucy is now with Kevin. And so we kind of came into it. And Wendy Rich was, terrific. And she was very, we're going to kick it off at a nighttime. We're going to shoot a 2-hour nighttime spinoff. So for that hour or two, I think it was 2 hours, we were prime time. I could feel prime time.
Yeah. And I mean, Wendy was really smart.
Yeah. And then she had to get those 8 interns, and she got, 8 good ones. There was that was an undertaking to cast 8 actors for a soap opera, a new soap opera. But I guess they do it. They did it. They've started a few soaps.
Yeah. What drew you to New York City again, and As the World Turns?
General Hospital had decided that they needed to get rid of some actors and save some money, and my name came up. So the next thing I know, there was like, we're letting you go. I said, where am I going? To the Bahamas? No, we're letting you go. What do you mean? We're firing you. What? Oh, okay. And I don't know, a couple months after that, after I said, well, okay, what am I going to do? Then I went over to the Young and the Restless for about a year. And then I finished Y&R, and I went to Fort Lauderdale, and I got a call to go play Sarah Brown's brother on As the World Turns. And I said, Sarah Brown, I love Sarah Brown. She's a firecracker. I said, I'll play her brother. And there I was. And then they said, well, we're going to keep you around and hook you up with Martha Byrne. I said, well, that's going to cost some money. No. So, no. So then next thing I know, I was working with her. I was her, love interest, Keith Morrissey. Yeah. Keith. And she was a riot, and I became very good friends with her and had a lot of fun with her. And
you can't not have fun with her.
That is for sure.
Yeah.
That is for sure.
And Michael Park.
What's that?
And Michael Park is another one you can't not have fun with.
Michael Park made me laugh on a regular basis. if he went up on his lines, he didn't just go up. He went through the roof, and and I couldn't stop laughing every time he went up, and he was so much fun to work with, and I worked a lot with him. And then I saw him do Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, and I've seen some of his theater work. I mean, he's a hell of an actor. And I had a few scenes with the great Maura West, and when she came on General Hospital, I went right up to Frank Valentini's office and I said, "If you don't know what to do with Maura West, you could throw her my way." "No, Ken, we got big plans for Maura. Doesn't include you." I said, "Oh, okay." But then I ended up being her attorney, and so I got to work with Maura quite a bit, and still get to work with her all the time. And that's a treat. You put Maura and Martha and Michael together, and all of us, it's just fun.
And a talented bunch. And you also got to work with Elizabeth Hubbard, right?
Oh, yes.
What was that experience like?
Well, I never knew what to make of her. I'm not sure whether she liked me or she didn't like me, because she was very, very regal and refined. And there was a storyline where we were stuck in a plane together, a little plane that Keith had gotten, and I worked, very closely with her, and we had fun. And then when we would leave the studio, they had a car service, and I ended up, because she lived up close to where I lived in the city, and I would ride in the car with her. And, I would always, "So what do you got on tap tonight?" "Well, we're going to the theater." And then, so it was like, I never knew what to say to her. She was terrific and couldn't have been nicer and professional, but she was so, I always wondered, and I'm not sure she even knows my name, but, I don't know. But, I had a great time with her, working with her. She certainly was, one hell of an actress. So
She really was. You said that was some of the most fun you had. Was it because of the people you worked with?
Yeah, that we became very tight and hung out after the show on some of the weekends had cocktails and stuff, and laughed a lot. And because I worked really with Michael Park and Martha, it was always, it wasn't work. You were just goofing off. You were just having fun. So, and then I would, bum rides with either one of them, so that they had cars, and I either had to wait for the car service, or Martha
catch a lift with one of them.
Yeah, I did. I caught a lift with all of them, and so I got to know them even better.
Yeah, I love the story Michael and Maura tell. They both drove in separately, and they would be on the phone rehearsing.
Oh, really?
What's it like watching Maura over there on GH?
Watching Maura?
Yeah.
On GH?
Yeah, as Ava.
Oh, I love her as Ava. I think she plays the hell out of Ava. And, so when I come her way as her lawyer, it's always fun. I remember I had a scene with her, and for some reason I was going to do an apple bit where I was eating an apple, and I'm talking to her, and I could see in her eyes, she just went, like, in the middle of the scene, she just snatched the apple, put it on the table, and I thought, I'll be damned if I'm going to let him upstage me with that silly apple. And I knew it was coming, but it was just for some reason they gave me this prop to work with an apple. I've worked with apples before. And I could see in Maura's eyes that she's not having any of this business. So she always makes me laugh. And she's the first one to say, if you say the line that way, I really can't answer you. Oh, so what are you saying? Well, if you say it the way it's written, we can play the scene. Oh, right, of course. Why wouldn't I think of that? Say it the way it's written. Yes, I'm sorry. I was giving you a bad cue. So she's very quick to tell me.
Yeah, I love that. Love that. Is there anybody who you wished you worked with? You know, I know you mentioned more, but currently, right now, who you'd love to work with that you see on the show?
You know, I just recently worked with Maurice Bernard, and I've worked with him not very often because we have this thing. But I every time I do scenes with Maurice, it's always fun because he is so different from his character in real life. And when he steps into the Sonny thing and I'm playing the Scotty thing and we have had this, but Maurice could charm the pitchfork away from the devil. He has such a, when I go to lunch with him or hang out with Maurice, he is just so charming and so funny and so likable and just, you know, he's really and smart and knows a lot. And so I would love to flush a relationship, the Scotty Sonny, out and, you know, maybe one day be his lawyer. And, you know, I would like to work more with him because everybody else on that show I get to work with because of the nature of Scotty Baldwin now. He's mixed up with just about everybody in one capacity or another, whether it's legally or, you know, romantically or whatever I'm doing.
That's got to be a great feeling, though, you know, playing a character who's mixed up with everybody.
Well, it's better than playing a character mixed up with nobody.
That's for sure. I must thank our mutual friend, Susan Eisenberg, for putting us together today. But on that note, Michael was asking, tell us about your work on Justice League Unlimited, voicing the Green Arrow.
I got the job. I don't know how I got the job. Somebody called and said, do you want to be the voice of the Green Arrow? And I said, who's the Green Arrow? No, I said, yeah, sure. And I went to the job and all these actors were all at different mics. And, you know, and it was like, oh, well, there's the Batman, there's Superman. And they were just, and so I just jumped right in with, you know, well, isn't that the great Green Lantern? What are you doing on my turf? And all of a sudden I just became the Green Arrow and, you know, off to the races. And I got to do it there. And then I went to New York to do As the World Turns. And they still found a recording booth for me to go in and do it. I wasn't with all the Batman and all of the superheroes. And I think Susan, because she's Justice League and the Unlimited came along and brought me and a few of us others in that really don't have superpowers. We're supposed to keep them in check. But I think personally that they all got jealous that, you know, what do we need the Green Arrow here for? And who's this other guy? And who's the Black Canary? So we started invading, you know, their turf. So
their space. Yeah, absolutely.
But it was a great job. You know, who doesn't want to be the voice of a superhero?
Absolutely.
And Susan does it very well. And she ended up living about 5 doors down from me about 10 years ago. And she introduced herself because I said, why is this girl seems to be hanging around outside? And I think she said, I'm not a stalker, but I play Wonder Woman.
Wonder Woman.
And I said, oh, right. I don't think we ever were in the same sessions or we were in the same episode, but I was either in New York or doing it somewhere else. So I didn't really, she wasn't there when we did the real live ones, the few I did before they switched it up.
Do you like doing the voice work?
Yeah, but if you start at the top, there's nowhere to go,
As a superhero.
It's like, wow, to get a voice of a superhero out of the blue was, that was a fluke. That was like a lotto ticket. And
That's awesome.
I could audition for that part till the cows come home and never get it. I don't know if somebody was a fan of sort of me on General Hospital and said, what about the guy from General Hospital? That Scotty Baldwin might be a good Green Arrow. And that's what rode me into it. So I still don't know that to be true, but all I know is I got the job,
Right. And that's all that matters.
That's all that, yes, that's all.
That's all that matters. Well, speaking of job, 45 years of General Hospital. When you look back, what are you most proud of?
That I'm still there, still standing. I'm still standing around. I'm still there. If I was still there and nobody else was still there, I would feel like the kid that was left behind, But the fact that Jeannie is there and Jackie is there and Jane is there from time to time and Leslie Charlson and all the people that I started the show with, most of them are still there. So it's always fun to still go in there and think that, well, nothing's really changed, even though it is 45 years later.
That's awesome. Well, there's a lot of love coming your way from the fans on here. They love the bad Scotty. They want you to stick around. Somebody actually asked, is GH better today or back in the day?
Well, everybody will say back in the day because, we were all young and it was very exciting and, we were working a lot and we were carrying story and storyline, which is, what, every actor wants. If you're on a soap, you want to carry some story. You want to, move the story. Otherwise, you're the guy that's doing the exposition. And you don't want to be that guy. You want to be the guy moving the story. And when it gets moved, I think they wrote a book back Who Moved My Cheese? Remember that book, that self-help book? Huh? Do you remember that?
I don't. Who moved my cheese? I'm going to look that up.
No, it's very famous. Everybody was reading the book, Who Moved My Cheese? It was about all of a sudden, wait, what happened here? Where's my cheese? So as a rat, you've got to go find more cheese, the cheese. So that was the joke I used to make all the time about my storyline. Who moved the cheese? What happened to my storyline? So I better go find a new storyline.
That's awesome. Yeah. Ken, thank you so much for spending the hour with me. Congratulations.
Did we already do an hour?
We did. We did a little over an hour. See how fast it goes?
Very fast.
It does go fast.
I had a great time. Thank you for all the doing this and letting me talk about the heyday and all the fun that we all had and still have it.
I appreciate it very much, and I appreciate you watching the show with Billy and Julie.
Oh yeah, well I've seen your show before. I see when I saw you interview Moore and all those As the World Turns people.
Yeah,
when you started this. Yeah. And
when the pandemic hit, it'll be 2 years in April. Crazy.
Wow.
Crazy.
Well, long live General Hospital. It's going to hit 60 next year. So, it's going strong. I'm glad to be a part of it. And thank you for talking.
That is amazing. That is a celebration next year. I can't wait to see what they do for that. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be fun. So
thank you, my friend.
Okay. Now I just punch out of here, right?
You just punch out of here. I'll take care of it.
You punch out.
I'll punch out.
All right. Thank you, General Hospital fans out there. Okay.
Bye, Ken.
Catch you later.
You got it. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. Thank you to Ken Schreiner for joining us today to celebrate 45 years of Scotty Baldwin. Unfortunately, due to a scheduling conflict, John McCook and Windsor Harmon will not be available to join me on Wednesday. But don't forget to tune in Thursday to see the 35th anniversary episode of The Bold and the Beautiful. Today is my last show for the month of March, and I will return on Friday, April 1st to celebrate my second anniversary of the Locker Room with a guest many of you have been asking for, I hope, and a great lineup of shows in April. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel down below if you haven't. Turn on the notifications for reminders of all upcoming shows so you don't miss an episode. Stay safe, everyone, and I'll see you on Friday, April 1st. Bye-bye.